The night's long shadows have dragged you through time and across worlds to kneel here before my worm-eaten throne. I offer you now this one chance to walk away with your lives and your souls intact. Please, tell me our story. From the Canticle of the Dragon. Thus began the age of despair. The roads were tangled. The winds and the sandstorms dwelt in the husks of cities. The plains and the mountains became our home. As the old gods lost their power, we called to a blank sky, into the cold, dividing gray, to the ears of new gods. The sky is calm, silent, unmoving. We have yet to hear their answer. Thunk, 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 the thunk, thunk, the thunk, thunk. Rukon, you stand on the front lines of a great marching army made up of draconians and wicked humans. On either side of you are your brothers in arms, Minotaur slaves of your cruel draconian master, Blog. Before you lies a grassy plain giving away to Palanthus, a great city gleaming under the stars and moonlight. A city whose walls have never been breached by foe. Not yet. Thunk, the thunk, the thunk, the thunk. The slave fighters all around you beat their weapons against their shields, rattle their spears, and stomp their bloody feet against the dirt. And you know, they will be the first to die in the battle to come. They will be the first to fight. Rukon, as you stand there, what are you doing in this moment? What are you feeling in this moment?
He's got his scimitar in his hand and his shield in another one. And he's looking around for any sort of sign of empathy yet knowing he will get none. And he moves in rhythm with everyone else and just kind of breathes, tries to control his breathing, but can't fight the tightness, the giant ball that's sitting right below his chest as it slowly starts to rise.
There are all sorts of men who fight in war. There are brave men. There are men who have an inherent bloodthirst, and the only thing that will fulfill that thirst is battle. There are frightened men who are forced into it. You're standing at the front line of this army of slaves, and every sort of Minotaur, every sort of man is there, frightened, brave, evil. Some your friends, some you don't know. You've marched so long to get here, not knowing where you were going, only knowing that a great battle was coming. What does Rook-Own look like right now? Describe him a little bit for me.
Rook-Own, being a slave, being enslaved for a while at this point, his muscles are taut. Any amount of fat on him would have been starved out. You can see his ribs in his torso. He kind of looks emaciated from below the rib cage down, but the muscle mass has not gone away. His skin peels tightly over everything that exists. His face is shrunken in. You can see like indents. His beard flows, grazing his chest. Some of it was burnt off, cut off. You can see some fresh wounds from recent beatings and scars and stories from old ones.
So this is a good time, a good moment to mention a few things. Because of some awesome donations we had last week, Rook-Own has some benefits at the start of this confrontation that's to come. You currently have inspiration. You currently have plot armor, which is 10 temporary hit points. And you got a boon. You were gifted a boon from our artist, Geo, and we've decided that that boon is that you are better, stronger. Your horns may be sturdier and sharper than most Minotaurs, and so your gore attack is plus 1d6. You get an extra weapon die for your gore attack.
Yeah.
Now here, at the edge of this battle, as thunk, the thunk, the thunk, Minotaurs are beating weapons against their shields, the night air is clear. There are no clouds. The stars twinkle in the sky. You can see Solinari and Lunatari, the white moon and the red moon, clear in the sky, maybe a little fainter than most nights, at the waning most of their track through the night. Despite the clear skies above, you see a sudden flash of lightning. It looks like heat lightning in a distance, and then a puff of green smoke. And before you, stepping out of that green mist, is your slave master, Vlog. Now, you've known Vlog for a while now. He's a tall, thin draconian dressed in red robes with scales of a noble golden color. Vlog's eyes are filled with a lust for power and somewhat of a madness. You've seen the harsher end of that madness, both against yourself, his cruelty, and against people you might care about. And he looks over the front line of the Minotaur slaves, and when he does, it's almost like he's looking through them, not at them. They still beat their weapons, though. Thunk, the thunk. And at last his eyes fall on you, Rook-Own, and his lizard's maw twists in something of a cruel grin. How do you meet his gaze in that moment?
Despondent. I look up. There's no emotion or attachment on my face. There's just the excitement for finally something different.
Just as his gaze meets yours and goes through you, beyond you, it continues to sweep the line, and he speaks with something of a wheeze and a draconian voice. All right, beasts, it's time for you to prove your worth. When the city's gate crumbles before the Blue Lady's army, you must charge. Charge and kill your way through any man who stands before you. Should you make it through the gate into the city, take what you want, do whatever vile thing lies in your heart. When the dust settles, should any of you still breathe, you will be free to live your lives, and your service to me will finally end. And again, his eyes sweeping the front line, thunk, the thunk, the thunk, the thunk, faster, more excited now. Somewhere far to your left, you see a familiar figure in the line. You see Hezgronoth, and for a moment, the large Minotaur, Hezgronoth, the proud warrior that you've known your entire life, he sees you too.
My eyes lock his, and then I retreat, and my head turns down, almost ashamed.
Almost at the same time, maybe even a second before you turn your head, Hezgronoth turns away from you too, and he spits into the dirt, beats his scimitar against his shield in rhythm with the other slaves. And in that moment, Vlog, in another puff of green smoke, steps into the vapor. The last thing that you see before he's gone is his twisted smile as he turns to look back over his shoulder at you.
It won't be long now.
Roll a perception check for me.
All right.
You see it before you feel it, before you hear it. A long shadow stretches over you and the other slaves, the front line, casting an eerie silence through your army. And overhead, maybe a few hundred yards above you, a crumbling dark stone castle resting on a mammoth black rock flies slowly towards the city of Palanthus. You can see their dots there, evil creatures lining the edge of the fortress, waiting to drop into battle. Vicious dragons circle, looping chaotic patterns around the flying castle. More dragons than you can easily count. You hear from the walls in the distance, cutting through the night air, the city's defenders cry out. It's a fearful cry at the appearance of this flying castle. And then they go silent, and it's quiet again, except for thunk, the thunk, the thunk. Your frontline parts to your right. The beating stops, and the silence that takes hold for a few moments is broken by sudden hoofbeats and fiery footsteps of a nightmarish black horse burst forth from the back of the line, twice the size of any horse that you've ever seen. Riding on the back of this horse sits a knight in blackened armor, wrapped in a tattered purple cloak. And the moment you see the figure, you feel cold, a deep bone cold that settles into your spine, into your heart, into your gut.
I'm visibly unsettled.
You see beneath the knight's great helm, there's only darkness. Whatever features are there, completely cast in shadow, except for 2 small, fiery orbs where his eyes should be. And the rider storms past the line towards the city walls, keeping an easy pace with the flying castle, which is moving quickly itself. And when the knight stops before the gates, finally, the defenders of Palanthas get their nerve. First, it's just one arrow, a brave or maybe a nervous guard, and then a volley of arrows are launched directly at this knight from archers lining the city walls. But you can see from even where you are that every arrow that would strike down a normal man either does not seem to affect this knight, maybe it breaks off on his armor. Suddenly, from the darkness behind the knight, there appears 13 skeletal warriors mounted on hideous beasts just like their master, and behind them, 13 banshees ride low to the ground in chariots that seem to be wrought from bone, pulled by wyverns. All in once, in a ghoulish chorus, the banshees wail, swinging swords made of ice. Roll me a charisma saving throw. It's pretty good. The bone cold settles deeper into you, and for a moment you feel in your heart a bloodlust. You feel like you might lose control, but you don't. You hold on to your mental faculties, onto your mind, onto your will. And it's at that point that Lord Soth raises a gauntleted hand and traces what looks like a strange symbol into the air. A gorgeous pattern of frost spreads like lace over the iron bands that hold the gate together. And that ice grows thicker and thicker until it covers the entire gate. And then Lord Soth speaks a word. You can't make it out from here. You're not sure that you would even understood it if you could hear it. And as soon as he says whatever he says, the gate shatters into 1,000 pieces. The gate that has never been breached, never been broken. And as soon as it does, thunk, the thunk, the thunk. The Minotaurs begin beating their shields again. They raise their weapons into the air, and a cry goes out at the front of this army all around you as your brothers and sisters in slavery, in arms, charge. What does Rugon do?
Rugon starts with a walk, lets the others around him bump his shoulders, and he starts to gradually increase his pace, and then jogs, and then leaps into a full-on sprint, in his heart rushing headlong into death.
And as you charge, you have what weapons? What are you wielding at the moment?
Scimitar and shield in hand.
The shield is probably going to come in handy. You see the first volley hit the front line, those who have rushed in front of you, and many go down in a cry of blood. And then you see the defenders of the city, those who are armed, some mounted, some not, charge through the open gate, even as Soth and his 13 Skeletal Warriors and 13 Banshees, they don't wait for you. They advance straight through the gate, cutting down any man who stands in their path. Some of the men splinter around this main force, the Dark Knight, and charge you and your brothers. And you know that you're just a few moments away from battle being met.
Kind of shakes out his arm with the scimitar in it, regrips his shield, tightens the straps as he's running, and eager for a life not of this, sprints carelessly into the fray.
Before you reach the front line, another volley is loosed, and this volley will rain down in front of you, all around you, behind you. I need you to make me a dexterity saving throw, and then you can go ahead and roll me some initiative too. So as fast as you run, you see all around you friends dropping right to your left, right to your right. You would have taken 7, 8 piercing damage as 2 arrows come directly ahead of you. But at that moment, a young, much younger than you, Minotaur, that you've sort of been taking care of and guiding and through his slavery, nursing him back to health when he gets sick, he swerves inexplicably to the left, right in front of you, and 2 arrows pierce both sides of his chest, and you see him drop like a bag of rocks right in front of you. And that is your plot armor. That is 8 points, 8 hit points off of your temporary hit points. So you continue to charge. And you are moments away now, just moments away from the front line. And there are 2 figures rushing towards you. They're both guards, not knights. Sword, shield, on foot. And you're close enough now that you can see the whites of their eyes. One of them, old, grizzled, with a look on his face that says that he's accepted death today. Rushing ahead of him, a much, much younger guard, maybe a boy, you're not even sure if he's an adult, and he has a look that you probably know very well. A look of panic and fear in his eyes, gripping his heart, pushing him forward, making him run faster, even though he's afraid. And with a 14 initiative, you're going to go first. And in that moment, right before battle is met, he slides in the mud, falls down to his knees, and stares up at you, much, much larger than he is, much, much more ready for this than he is. For a moment, he drops his sword. What do you do?
So fully ready to accept death. He is taken aback by the Minotaur that he cared for, just taking arrows for him, and this young child of a person looking at him with swords and is just on the ground. And so like the knot in his chest tightens and slowly raises to his throat, and something consumes an outside source. His breathing dramatically gets heavier. His blood vessels start to constrict everywhere. And it's like, if you were to hear anything, all you'd hear is the ocean. Like he's got limited use of his hearing, and he closes his eyes for a moment, and it takes over, and the blood vessels in his eyes burst, and what were the whites of his eyes turns into waves of blood, ebbing and flowing, and they consume his eyes, making them red. And he takes a look at the knight that's standing beyond the weak young blood that tripped, and he charges that knight.
And he's charging you too, but you're gonna get to him first. You're gonna get to go first in this combat.
Okay. Do an attack with the scimitar, try to anticipate his movement, feign to the right, and swing at the shoulder.
As grizzled as he is, as you feign, he falls for it, and he pulls his shield too far to the right, exposing his shoulder for a hit. How much damage do you deal?
Let me add the rage, one moment. It's 8 total.
8 total. You take off his arm right where the armor splits, and there's just a slight chink in it. And he screams choking on his own blood, and falls to the ground, falls to his knees, still gripping his sword, still going to try to take a swing at you. And behind him, almost emboldened by seeing a man that perhaps he knew, the boy stands up too. And he comes at you from behind, and together they flank you front and back. And because they're flanking, they will have advantage on their attack rolls here.
Yeah, that makes sense.
All right. So 19 and a 16.
The 19 hits.
So it's actually the dying man, the one on the ground, who pushes up to his feet and drives his blade forward, grazing you for 5 hit points. Now, because he's weakened, 2 of those will be your last temporary hit points. And you'll take 3 damage. The boy behind you, even though he means well, even though he's trying to help, he is not experienced with a sword, and he slashes wide and misses you.
Was that just that slashing damage? So with that whole
you're
bloodshot
now.
Yeah,
right. Yeah. So yeah, then that's only 2 damage. So it grazes you, but you don't feel it in your rage. You don't actually take any real damage. The boy misses you entirely, and it's at that point that another volley of arrows comes down overhead, and all 3 of you are going to make some dexterity saving throws.
I have advantage on dexterity saves. I can see.
You feel it in the air, vibration, and you shift just enough, and just right to the left of your head, an arrow whizzes by. That arrow strikes the boy behind you in the eye, and he goes down screaming, not dead yet, but certainly out of the fight, certainly not able to stand up to you. The old man, even though he's lost an arm, even though he's probably going to bleed to death in moments, again readies his sword and prepares to attack, but it's your turn.
Going to ready my scimitar again, make eye contact with the gravely wounded knight. You have lost this, but I will give you the death you desire in the hopes that I can get mine, and then swing with my scimitar.
That's a hit. Go ahead and roll that damage for me.
7.
He opens his mouth to maybe give you a retort, maybe to cry out, maybe to say one last thing to someone important to him, but he never even starts to utter those words as your blade comes across and catches him in the throat. And holding his neck, he goes down, is lifeless. Meanwhile, the line rushes past you. Minotaurs, humans, Draconians now catching up. Everyone rushing towards the city gates as another volley of arrows flies. Give me one more dexterity saving throw. So an arrow once again seems like it's going to strike you, and once again, would-be ally, a Draconian this time, swerves to the right, pushing forward through the throng of bodies, cutting its way through another human guard, and the Draconian takes the arrow for you in the shoulder, as I saw that you just got another round of plot armor. So that's now 6 temporary hit points that you have total after that Draconian takes the hit for you. Doesn't stop him, though. The Draconian fights on, the throng is pushing on, and now you find yourself caught in the middle. Are you willing to cut your way through and do what it takes to get inside the city walls, Rukon?
I'm not going to cut my way through, but I will shove my way through. You know, that eagerness to reach the beyond, to be free of this life. like his shield's down at his side, his sword's down at his side, and he's just using his might and weaving through like a teenager would weave through a crowd at the mall.
I would say that the gods are on your side tonight, but there are no gods in Kryn, not in the Age of Despair. Whatever it is, though, you push forward even as men, allies, and enemies are dying all around you. And you do find your way through the shattered gates, stepping over magical ice that still clings to the ground. Your vision is covered in red, some of it the blood of murdered men, some of it your inherent rage, your inherent nerves. And that's where we're going to cut away from your scene for a moment. And instead, we're going to move into the city of Palanthas, into its wealthy arts district. We move to a beautiful villa, a relic left over from the Age of Might that's been upkept through no small expense. Here, it's the third night in a row of pre-wedding festivities for a young but very wealthy noble merchant named Clail von Regier, and his partner-to-be, an equally wealthy painter named Selena of House Painthios. Now, Selena paints people's pets, and the nobility in the city rave about how she captures furry friends' souls with her unmatched artistry. The lower class people, they don't get it, but the upper class people of Palanthas just think that she is the greatest artist in the city today. Many of the city's elites are here tonight, drinking and feasting, either unaware or without care that an army has amassed outside of Palanthas' walls. After all, the city really hasn't ever been invaded successfully. Its walls have never been breached. Now, the Knights of the Crown and the military are not attending this party. In the Age of Despair, the Knights of Solamnia are considered an outdated and disgraced faction by most, especially the wealthy. And they're often the butt of jokes at parties just like this one. Now, despite their lack of popularity, there actually is one knight attending the party. Hi, Greg. Tell us about Reardon, how he's dressed, how he looks, what he's doing at the party.
Sir Reardon has attended this party. He is dressed both in his cape and furs, but also his plate mail, as he, unlike those that are surrounding him, his quote-unquote peers, he understands the gravity of the situation, and he will not be caught unaware. He wades through this throng of pestilence, this political elite, and he cares not for any of them beyond his duty to protect them. He is there for another reason. Word has it his general is here.
Roll me a perception check.
21.
You are keeping a very close eye on who comes and who goes. You've been watching the exits, you've been moving about, and despite all of that, you've yet to see your general. Maybe she hasn't arrived yet. You definitely heard rumors that she would be at this party. And I'll go ahead and say this now before we move on. You have a few boons from last week as well. You have the Shadow's Judgment. That means at the end of this episode, you're going to have advantage on your corruption saving throw. You have Inspiration, and you were awarded the viewer decision for The Light Still Shines last week. So whether it's this week or 6 weeks from now, the next time you fail a corruption saving throw, you will not gain corruption. You continue to watch, looking for the general, and because of that 21, you feel very confident that she's not here, not yet. Are you socializing? Are you mingling with the nobles?
Not at all. But he is staying in the most visible spot in the center of what would be the grandest of the gathering spots, near where the betrothed couple would be maybe perhaps mingling or meeting their own guests. Knowing the reputation of this house, he would stand and his armor would be on full display as he pulls himself up to his over 6 feet in height. Doesn't stare at anyone because that would be improper, but he is there.
You find yourself standing close to a small circle of friends, family. The husband-to-be, Cleo von Ragier, and the wife-to-be, Selena, are at either end of this sort of open semicircle. She's sitting on a chair, painting a picture that looks realistic. It's a very good painting of a dog. But like her painting, neither one, when you look into their eyes, there doesn't seem to be anything real behind the surface, behind the mask. And that's when you feel a tug at your gauntleted hand. So
He would drop his gaze, yeah.
When you look down, it's a young, very, very fancy looking man. And when I say man, it's a young boy who's dressed like a nobleman would be. It almost looks ridiculous on this boy, the way that he has layers and buttons and whatnot. But he's smiling up at you, and he tugs your hand again. He says, "Mister, are you a knight?"
Yes, son, I am. Sir Reardon Pathwarden. And who are you?
Sir Reardon, I'm Humphrey. Are you a knight of the robes?
No, son, I am a knight of the crown.
You see for a moment just a slight dissatisfaction flicker across his face, the disappointment. But he still manages to smile, and he says, "I've never met a real knight before. My father, he doesn't like you very much, but my mother, she told me so many stories, old stories. Do you know the old stories, Sir Reardon?"
I do, son. What stories are your favorite?
Oh, my favorite's the stories that are all about Huma. Do you know about him?
I do. Do you know what he was a knight of?
He was the first knight? He was the first knight. There were no knights before him.
He leans down. He was the first, so that means he was a knight of the crown. He leans back up.
He smiles at that, and you see a new appreciation in his eyes. He'll say, "Do you know any stories about Huma? Any that you would share with me?"
I know only his ending, boy. Do you know of how Huma fell?
No, my mother never told me that story.
Perhaps your father would not care for it, but your hero, he leans down again, my hero, rode the back of a silver dragon that loved him and that he loved. And he defeated the Queen of Darkness. And then, like a good knight, he fell.
Did he get back up after? Did anyone help him?
He leans down again. Do you remember him?
Why, only because of the stories my mother told me.
Then he did get back up. In you. And he touches the boy's chest. In me. He touches his own chest. And in all of the people that he saved. He did get back up, son.
Oh. Well, that's a sad story, but I think I understand. Why are you here tonight? No other knights came.
Well, I had the pleasure of meeting you. The only man among this party who would speak to me. And I am appreciative of such fine company. I have come, though I believe that my general is to attend, and it is her that I would see.
Oh, well, I hope that you find... And then it's that point that an older man, much older, his spine crooked, limping with a cane, storms through a small throng of people and snatches the boy's arm and starts to pull him away from you. Ow, Mr. Knight, Sir Reardon, I have to go. It was good to talk to you. Thank you for the story.
He just touches his own heart, and he points at the boy's chest. He never fell.
The boy looks a little confused for a moment as he's being dragged, not far from you at all. But he finally gets it, and he looks down, and then he touches his chest too, and he smiles big. And then the old man sort of pulls him around to the front and places both of his hands onto the boy's shoulders. And he's now a part of this semicircle that you saw before where the husband and the wife are. And you hear a series of giggles from the women in this semicircle, including Selena. And then Clail von Regier, the husband-to-be, the patron of this party. He says, "Now, I have another joke. I know that wasn't my best, but he sort of glances around, and for a moment you think his eyes stop on you. But then they keep going. Have you heard this one? And stop me if you have. What do you call the great golden general, the hero of the Battle of Vingard?" The old man squeezes his son's shoulders, or maybe it's his grandson. Well, go on with it then. Clail pauses for a moment, and his eyes flicker back to you once again. This time they do stop on you.
He does not blink as he meets the gaze. Tell your story. Your joke.
Oh, well, it's an old one, an easy one, really. You just call her a lucky elvish whore. There's silence for a moment.
He strides forward.
Even as he takes his first step, the first awkward, tense laugh begins, and then a series of laughs. People you didn't even think might be listening in on this conversation begin to laugh. It's uproarious. Clail von Regier just smiles.
What is his rank in society?
He is a merchant, so he is very, very wealthy, but he holds no
title?
No title of sorts. He's much wealthier than most men who do hold titles.
Your joke is poor, and your audience seems not to have heard it correctly, so let me finish it for you. You left out the most important part. You see, I'm not sure if you realize, as I am referred to as a knight here, My name among you people is Lord Pathwarden. And my dear friend, you have insulted the nobility of this land, myself, and the general. And so, I hope you celebrate your wedding day, for it is on the day after that you and I shall settle this by arms. And congratulations on marrying this average woman. And he turns and walks away.
You catch a moment, Selena pouting at your words, huffing at your insult as though you've deeply offended her, her hand clutched to her heart. For his part, Clail just kind of smiles a shit-eating grin. He does flinch, but he fights through it and says nothing and turns back to the others once you pass and begins speaking, maybe joking, now much more hushed than before. Roll me a perception check.
That one's a 9.
Which way are you headed now?
He walks back to the very position that he held before, which is in the center of the area, which he hopes would be the area of high traffic in which to see the general. And he remains standing, his eyes marking anyone that would dare look at him with insult.
You don't see it before you feel it. A hand placed gently on your forearm. You can feel just the shift of weight through the armor, through your plate. And then the Golden General is there beside you. Lorana is strikingly beautiful. In our world, she would look like a Viking warrior queen with long flowing golden hair, almond-shaped green eyes, delicate features, and alabaster skin. She's armored, armed, even wearing her helm. And she smiles at you. Hand on your arm. It's a smile that you've seen once before, that time in the heat of battle.
He takes a knee. My general.
Oh, please, none of that. Would you join me for a minute? Could I steal you?
I am yours to be stolen.
Well, let us find an alcove here. It's a little more quiet. I don't much like the company and the ears in this room.
Nor do I.
She steps back just half a pace, sort of offers you her arm in an official way and gestures with her other hand to a nearby alcove that is more poorly lit. You can't tell if anyone's there right now, but it certainly seems a little more out of the way of this party room.
He will absolutely take her arm, and as rigid as a man who has never felt a curve in his spine can be, he walks proudly through this den of gossips, and he feels as if he is not on parade, but it's the same feeling.
She keeps her chin up too. There's a proud, non-threatened expression, a grace, an elvish grace on her face. As she walks through the room with you, you feel a slight shake in the room, the walls. Roll me a perception check.
He, as a Nat 1 would dictate, narratively, he can notice nothing else except the general.
She gives you a look out of the corner of her eyes without turning her head, and her smile stays for a second and then fades a little, and it's replaced by something something sadder than before. And a moment later, you two step together into this alcove. She says, as she breaks from your arm, I must admit, I'm surprised to see you here.
I could not let you go to battle alone.
Well, it is much like battle here, but I'm afraid that a real battle is coming. I know that many here don't believe in it, don't believe that Palanthas can fall. But I know Kitiara and what she's capable of too well, and I know what she wants. We can prevail, but I need brave men, and there are not many braver that I have ever met than you, Sir Reardon.
You honor me, General. By your side I will stay until the conflict is over. On my honor.
Well, I'm afraid that our paths must part. There's something I must do. Another battle, in some ways, a bigger battle that must be fought. But even now, the army comes, and the walls will not hold. I want you to promise me something. Will you do that for me, Sir Reardon? Lord
Of course.
Reardon.
Sir Reardon, I am always a knight with you. Nevermore. Are you sure? General, perhaps I could assist you. There are knights here. We have fought together. We know one another. Perhaps I could accompany you to this greater battle.
The battle I must fight alone. It's a different sort. When this is through, I'll explain it all to you. But meanwhile, the Knights of the Crown and the Knights of the Rose that are out preparing urban defenses, that are out protecting the streets, readying them for the invasion, they need a man like you. My husband, Tanis, he needs you. And I want you to promise me that you'll help them protect the city.
There is, for as much as a man with a beard and in full armor can exhibit, there is a conflict waging in his eyes. Everything about him wants to press the issue of accompanying her, but everything in the measure tells him he cannot. And so he simply nods. As you wish, General. I shall fulfill it to the best of my ability.
Oh, I know you will do just fine. Thank you. Protect them. The army will come up the main street and from there break towards the center of the city. It's not Palanthas that the Blue Lady wants. They march on the Tower of High Sorcery. That is where she will go, and that is where I will meet her. But the streets will wash in blood. The innocent must be protected. Protect the main streets. Find my husband.
Should we rally at the tower then? Is that what you're saying?
No mortal man can step foot into the tower. It's not safe. If we rally there, the innocents from the gates to the tower will be helpless. They need you. Please.
Of course. Of course.
She smiles again, and it's that same smile. This is the third time that you've seen it, and each time it has been in the middle of battle. Different sorts of battles. Some waged with weapons and some waged in the heart. She takes a deep breath. I must go. When this is over, I will see you again.
We shall. And he holds up his gauntleted left hand, and as he clenches it into a fist, in a capture set on the outside, there is an elven ring set in the gauntlet. We shall meet once the city and the people are safe. And we've pushed it back again.
Her eyes flicker to the elvish ring that's set into the gauntlet. They stay there for a long second, but just a second. Her smile fades, and she touches her gauntlet to her chest, looking much more serious now. Go on, Sir Reardon. Fight with honor.
Always, General. After, I shall see you. And he bows, turns on his heel, and walks out. And if he sees Humphrey, he will nod to the boy and engage no one else.
Humphrey's staring out over the back of a couch, maybe watching the alcove, waiting for you to leave. And as you pass by, his head pops up and he smiles and waves and then ducks back down over the back of the couch. And you leave. And as Sir Reardon Pathwarden runs off to keep his promise to the Golden General, we're going to move away from that scene and to another. Before the Doomspire, Palanthas's cursed tower of high sorcery, there stands a crooked figure wearing robes the color of midnight. He stands there still as a statue, his robes flowing with the wind. After a moment, a chilling wail penetrates the air, warning the wretched figure to turn away from the tower. And that wail comes from a ghastly face twisted in fury, an undead face that floats before the tower gates. The guardian's pale skeletal hand reaches out slowly towards the unflinching robed figure, and it touches him in the chest, where you would assume a man's heart would lie. It's at that moment that the hand, the undead hand, touches the robes, that the hand trembles and pulls back. The robed figure steps forward. He speaks calmly to the tower's guardian. Know this. I am the master of past and present. My coming was foretold. For me, the gates will open. And at the wizard's words, the skeletal figure shrinks back away from the gate, and it bows its head almost as though it's in shame. The gate swings open on silent hinges, and the wizard steps forward through the shadow into the hall within the Tower of High Sorcery without hesitation. Honoria, You have watched this from a dirty alleyway of ill repute just across the abandoned street. For a moment, you can see just the right way through the twisted trees of the grove that protects the tower. You can even see a flash of golden something underneath the wizard's hood. And then you hear him speak one more time before the shadows of the tower swallow him. Ah, I am home. And then he's gone. Honoria, what are you doing right now? What do you look like? What's going through Honoria's mind?
Pull back my cloak, watching him enter the tower. I feel like I've seen this moment before. If I were to watch every step, to replay every word in my mind that he has just said, do I think that I could follow him to the tower?
You know that the tower is not supposed to be enterable, that there's a curse on the Doomspire. That's how the tower got its nickname. That a wizard of great power leapt from the top of the tower and took his own life to curse and seal it away from any who might seek the power that lies within. And yet, here's this figure, and he walked through the gates and into the tower, through the grove that, to your mind, no man has done in an age. And he did it without hesitation, without any sort of problem.
I'm going to keep the hood pulled close to me, but I'm going to come out from the alley, looking left and right to see if anyone else has watched him enter.
Roll a perception check for me. Somewhere in the distance, not on this street, several streets over, you see smoke rising in the flicker of what might be a fire. You can hear the sound of a distant scream, a scream of pain. But this street is abandoned. Most would not even come close to the tower because of its reputation for being haunted and deadly and dangerous. So at this moment, you see no one. And I'll say this too, because of some donations that we got last week, you also have inspiration. And there's two other things I want to just talk about briefly. You were given a boon, and this is a boon that you start with at the beginning of the game. We talked about this a little bit. Do you want to share what she can do?
Yes and no.
You don't have to.
Honoria's minor eyes of time. I can focus my magic on one creature or object of my choice within range. If my target is a creature, I can see into their mind's eye any actions they took within the past 6 seconds, their previous turn, and get a glimpse at any actions they may take against you a moment before they act. Until the end of their next turn, they have disadvantage on any attack rolls or ability checks they would make against you.
So you have the beginnings, your first hint at time magic, a type of magic that has been of a large interest to Honoria recently. You also gained the Eye of Nutari from a viewer poll. And so before we continue, the second you step out into the street and closer to the tower, you feel a wave wash over you. It's a wave that you felt before. And unlike Rukon, when you look into the night sky, you don't see two moons, two faint moons. You see two very faint moons and a very bright moon, Nutari, the black moon, at the peak of its power. And in this moment, you gain 1d8 corruption. And I'd like you to go ahead and roll that corruption now. Oh yeah, you feel closer to madness and closer to power than you've ever felt before under the light of this moon.
I breathe it in, accepting it into my body, into every pore of my flesh. I stride towards the tower, dropping my cowl completely. I can feel it. I take out my spellbook, and I open it gingerly to the first page. Approaching, I place a hand on it. Shirak. I whisper light into the book itself, and I continue to walk forward as far as I can until I am stopped, believing that New Atari, the moon shines just for me.
As you walk across the street and approach the twisted trees that protect the tower, the grove that no man or woman can walk through, for a moment you have a flicker of recent dreams, and you're not entirely sure right now, is this a dream or is this real? It seems real, but strange dreams have been haunting you for months. Your sleep is troubled by visions of an underground lake, not made of water, but made of something darker, something thinner than water. And then for the past 2 nights, your dreams have been better. In them, you've seen this black-robed figure, a figure with a face that is gold. And you've seen him enter the Doomspire just like tonight. And now tonight, with a black moon above you, shining down only on you, its shadow eclipsing the light of the other moons, you stand there just before the grove. And so far, nothing seems to have stopped you.
I knew this would happen. The soft, pale white light emanating from my spellbook, I still keep it in front of my chest, but keep it covered within my cowl so the radiance is close to me. And almost with a bridal march of death, I walk forward, telling myself to be strong, but my heart is hammering loudly within my chest. I alternate breathing calmly between my nose and opening my mouth, tasting sordid air around me, not looking to my left nor to my right, but straight ahead. This wizard keeps walking.
The wind whips through the dead branches of the grove, and when you take your first step into it, you feel a wave crash over you, not Nutari's light, but a wave of fear and panic. And Nori is a brave woman. There's not much she wouldn't dare. Is that right?
There's very few things, and everything that does put her off would be considered trivial to most people. Social standings, great events, large groups of people. But individually in her search for power, she thinks there is nothing she wouldn't do.
And it's those anxieties that are her weakest point, being in large groups of people. That's what she feels now. It's almost like the trees take a different shape, the shape of a crowd, the shape of happy, laughing, married, people with children, people with boring lives. And I want you to make me a charisma saving throw.
I'm going to use my inspiration.
You know it's not real. You know that this is just part of the Grove's power. And maybe on accident, maybe on purpose, your eyes flicker for a moment and a blink. And when that blink is done, the trees are just trees. The wind is just the wind, and there's nothing standing in your way.
I fight the urge to run to the tower. I continue walking. This time less of a bridle step, I can't help it. I am eager, but he is here. He who is in my dreams. I mustn't rush this. I need to savor it. This will be the moment before my culmination of total power. And he has it.
You push onward, and the doors to the tower, once you're past the grove, are still open. The gate is open. The skeletal guard, he's no longer bowing, but it's almost as you walk past him like he doesn't see you. Like you're invisible, or he's somehow inert, asleep. And you find yourself walking into the tower out of Nutari's light, this cursed place, and it's known for its radiance. And the inside is dilapidated, but a little disappointing in some ways. It's plain for the most part. You find yourself at the foot of a long stair that ascends, twisting upwards to the tower's upper floors. Those stairs are lit along stone walls by globes of feeble magic light, barely flickering. On all sides of the hall are time-worn statues of great wizards past, defaced in various ways. A couple have been smashed into pieces. One is missing a head in a way that looks purposeful. Others, foul runes have been painted onto them. By whom? It's hard to say.
I reach out for a moment to some of the crumbling wizards. Dead wizards. Dead wizards. I caress a hand along one of them, moving my finger through what must be layers of dust. But I move all the way down to the bottom, and any rubble or dust of the stone I collect and put into one of my spell component pouches. I continue looking around, listening for the wizard.
You feel like you hear the echo of you, maybe footsteps, maybe it's a door closing. Roll me a perception check.
10.
You're not really sure what it is that you hear, but as you're looking around and you're getting closer to the foot of the steps, you see along the wall there are 3 hanging portraits with frames that seem to fit into yellowed bone. All sides of the hall, you have these statues. Beyond the statues, 3 portraits. And then the stairs.
I'm gonna walk up the stairs, keeping a lingering eye on the portraits to make sure their eyes don't move. This is a magical and cursed place, and everything may not be as it seems.
Roll me an Arcana check.
23.
As you get close to the bottom of the stairs, something in the back of your neck, the hairs in the back of your scalp, everything feels static. And you know in this instant that if you take a step onto those stairs, you could be obliterated. There's a powerful magic. And unlike the grove outside and the gate and everything that is parted to you, this magic seems intent on keeping you there.
Take out some of the rubble that I had just had I toss it into the stairs.
Explodes in a small cloud of dust the second it crosses the plane of the stairs.
And there is only the one set of stairs spiraling up.
It's a long, single, twisting set of stairs. You also said you looked at the portraits as well.
Mm-hmm.
You would have noticed something very easily strange about them, that there are three, a left, a middle, and a right. And the middle and the right portrait, instead of having a painting, are covered in shadow of some sort. A shroud of shadow. The leftmost painting is not.
In all of the portraits, do they all have one set of stairs? Is it local to this area, or is it just supposed to be one type of being? Is it the gods in the portrait player asking?
The stairs, this particular tower has one set of stairs. Have you ever been inside any of the other remaining towers of high sorcery?
Maybe.
Each one is unique, but they all share similar traits. This one, at least from where you are, seems like a tall, towering spire with rooms above where libraries of ancient knowledge are held.
Noria's biggest fear is death, but her greatest power lies in those stairs. Or to Raceland, if I can get him down here. You claim to be the master of past and present. Where are you?
The portrait hanging on the wall, the one not covered in shadow, quivers and quakes, and a faint light begins to emanate from it, and then it goes away.
I'm gonna go up to the painting, gingerly touch it, almost afraid that it might bite out at me.
At first, as you touch it, nothing seems to happen. It's a painting of, and it's strange, family in a small home, an unremarkable home, several young girls, a mother, a father. They seem to be having fun. It's the sort of painting that a lesser artist would sell in a marketplace, and wealthier women who miss their children and miss the happier times in their life might buy, or that a fond father might get as a gift for one of his daughters or sons. But there's something strange about the youngest of the girls. She reminds you too much of yourself.
I want to use my eyes of time on the painting.
Mm-hmm.
Show me.
Your eyes glow with an arcane golden light, and for a moment you can see many possible futures, not far into the future, but just enough. And you focus on one of these times, one of these futures, and you see yourself standing, one hand on your past, one hand on the shadow of the middle portrait, and you move that shadow from one portrait to another. And when you do so, you start to turn to see what is on that portrait, and that's where your spell breaks and you feel exhausted after casting this spell. That's as far as you can glimpse.
Moving the shadows. Going to the other portraits with the light of my book, can I attempt to move the shadows from one to another? just by force? Do the shadows diminish in the light of my book?
They don't diminish. They do move, but maybe they were already moving. Maybe it's the light of your book that you can see that the shadows are not just blackness, but different shades, and that those shades are rippling like the waves of an unsettled lake. Do you want to try to move the shadows?
I want to see if I can move my hand through the portrait.
Which portrait are you going to try to move it through?
The one with the darkest shadows.
You do. Your hand passes through the furthest portrait to the right. It doesn't resist. As a matter of fact, you feel a little bit of a pull, and then a bigger pull, and it feels like it's trying to pull you into the portrait.
Kind of leap on it in, just grab my book, feel it pulling back against me, and then jump up and attempt to go through the portrait.
You dive through the portrait, and you, for a moment, are swimming in that lake that you've seen in your dreams, that lake that's not of water, but of something darker and thinner. You can't breathe. You see some sort of light at the top of the lake.
I swim.
You pull yourself through shadow to the surface, and as your golden eyes, break the surface of shadow, you are looking up in this cave that you've seen before through a roof, and above that roof, a swirling vortex of shadows, many of them human, some of them animal. You see this vortex, and every few moments, some of the shadows rush down to try to reach the cave, to try to come through that opening in the ceiling, and are pushed away. Roll a perception check for me, or an arcana check, either way.
I'm gonna go with Arcana. 12.
You're certain that someone is casting some sort of protective spell, and you, now waiting on top of this, not wet, shadow, see a man standing, kneeling, looks like in prayer before the edge of the lake. He is a man dressed in gleaming armor, somehow with only a torchlight to guide him. His armor is still bright, and he's a handsome man with long, flowing blonde hair. A man whose armor bears the insignia of a rose. His arms are spread out wide, and he's staring upwards, doesn't even see you. He's staring towards this vortex of shadows above you, struggling.
What is your task?
Just like before, just like in the grove, he doesn't seem to see you, just like the guardian doesn't seem to see you.
Delightful. I'm going to stride up to him, assuming that he can't see me. I attempt to touch him, run my fingers through his hair, see if he's real.
His hair is soft, a little sweaty, but well kept. He obviously cares for his appearance, and you have no problem touching him. He's still teeth gritted, struggling with whatever effort he's making to hold these shadows at bay. Doesn't seem to feel or see you.
What else is in here? The pool, the night, the portal.
There's many, many tunnels heading off into underground passages. You're not sure where they go. You've only seen glimpses of this place in your dreams.
I can't use my eyes on myself. That would
That would get crazy.
Again, on the man before me, to get whatever information I can out of him. I do not like burning spells this quickly.
You again focus the spell, and your eyes glow gold, brighter and brighter, and you see many possible immediate futures. And in one of them, one that you see one time, 2 times, 3 times, many times, you take your dagger out from where you lie, it lies hidden, and you slit this man's throat.
Well, that's not asking too much now, is it? I take out my dagger from where I keep it on my wrist. I use his blonde hair to lean his head back, and I cut as deep as I can. I look up at the portal when I do so.
For the first time, his eyes move to you and he sees you. He opens his mouth to say something, his eyes wide with concern, empathy, you're not sure, fear. Only blood spills out from him, and it spills out from his neck. And that blood turns dark as shadow. And in that instant, the shadows above begin crashing down through the ceiling, through this cave. And it's like a waterfall. It hits the lake of the cave, and the shadows begin to rise and rise. Your ankles, your knees, your waist, faster and faster.
I cast Fly. I look down to where the tunnels are. They go down, not up. The portal is closed.
The shadows are still coming through the ceiling. You could try to fly through them.
I am going to try and fly through them. You will not be remembered, I say, as I leave the body behind.
You can't see the body anymore. It too is covered in shadow, but as you fly upward, crashing through the shadow that falls, you begin to feel a choking sensation as these shadows enter your eyes, your ears, your mouth, your nose, any opening that they can, and they are filling you inside and out. You're covered in shadow, still flying upward.
Berjalan. And I cast Misty Step to try and get myself farther, even though I'm already flying.
You Misty Step as far as you can, reappear, and for a moment there's a reprieve, and then again the shadows enter your eyes, your nose, your ears. It's not painful. It's uncomfortable.
Where are you, mage? I'll continue to fly so far and long as I can.
As you continue to fly upwards, that's where we're going to cut away from this scene and move back to Sir Reardon. Reardon, you finally reached Tempest Half-Elven. Now he's Sir Tempest Half-Elven, a Knight of the Rose who never earned his rank, not through custom or trial, but was gifted it in recognition of his heroic deeds. Tempest Half-Elven stands about 6 feet tall. He too is dressed in plate mail now, with green eyes and a great red beard, which you know it's said that he uses to make himself look more human and less elf in the company of humans. He seems to be giving commands, ordering a number of Knights of the Crown to build a hasty barricade in the middle of the street. There's a barricade made of furniture taken from nearby homes, pieces of wood and metal, whatever they can find. They're doing their best to construct this quickly.
Sir Reardon will walk up and just allow his presence to be made known, but as soon as it is time to act, he begins to not only issue orders, but help in the construction of the barricade, reinforcing where necessary, pointing out weak spots, pointing out areas of extra defense. He ignores Tanis.
Go ahead and roll me a perception check.
8. Sir Reardon is pissed.
Even with an 8, you're pretty sure that Tennis has not done a good job creating a serviceable barricade. You are able to firm up some points and quickly improve things. And as you join the others, you feel a pat on your back. It's a friendly pat. It's a double pat. And it's Tennis there smiling at you. He says, Sir Reardon, I'm glad you're here. We needed you.
Yes, you did. What would
Are you prepared?
I'm always prepared. Sir Tennis.
It's not lost on him, your intonation, but he nods his head and he says, we have a long, hard night ahead of us. Please, Sir Reardon, if you can help with this barricade, do whatever you can. This sort of thing, it's a little beyond me.
You. Yes, it is. And he gets close, not looming, not threatening, just very tall and very present in Tanis's field of vision. And he says, I promised my general, and it is a promise I will keep. On my honor, Sir Tanis.
Well, we're all men of honor here, Sir Reardon. Takes a deep breath and straightens up, and like before, his friendliness fades and duty replaces it. Very well then, see what you can do with his barricade.
At the mention of we are all men of honor here, though it is beneath him, Sir Reardon will reach up and rub his own beard for a moment, and then turn at the end of Tanis's statement and continue with his work.
For a moment, you can feel Tanis's eyes in the back of your head, glaring, burning. But that fades, and you hear the step as Tanis moves away. You've been hearing the screams of people dying for some time now in the distance from the moment that you left the party. Now, as you run with haste to make this barricade stronger, not really having the tools that you need to do a good job, that sound becomes louder, each dying cry, each fearful wail, like the rumble of an ever-approaching thunderstorm. Your preparations are only about halfway finished when you feel a certain cold take you. And then you see it there, just a couple of blocks away, but high above you. A black castle floating on a massive stone, being circled by 1, 2, 5, 10 countless dragons. That shadow casts a long, stretching finger across the street, and in that shadow, just before you, steps out a figure clad in black armor, blackened by fire. Behind him, 13 armored skeletal knights. Behind them, 13 screaming banshees riding bone chariots, wielding swords of ice. They're just 100 yards away from you, and the fiery eyes of the Black Knight are staring down the street towards you, your barricade, Tanis, your men.
Sir Reardon will begin to walk towards a stable area of the barricade, all the while telling anybody that is working on it The time is over. Grab your weapons. It will hold or it will not. We shall not move. And as he gets closer, he steps up onto the barricade, and he begins to pull the great sword from the scabbard on his back. And as he pulls it free, he sets it down, point to the ground of the barricade, as he places his left hand atop the pommel. And then he points at the knight with the red eyes. Lauren! You are no sir. You are no lord. You are a pretender. But I am a kind man, and I will offer, and he raises his sword, absolution. And he pulls it up and prepares for the assault.
You hear in the distance the beating of drums or weapons against shields. You're not sure. Thunk, the thunk, thunk, the thunk. The Skeletal Warriors and the Banshees break away from the Black Knight. They move off in all directions, down alleyways, into homes. You hear those screams again. Now, just so close to you. The Knight of the Black Rose, he steps towards you and your fellow knights, and for a moment, the inspiration, the bravery that you are showing, it shines. It shines through their fear, and the men begin to take up arms. But it's someone else who can't quite hang. Tempest Half-Elven's face is pale. His hand is on the hilt of his weapon, but he doesn't step forward. He doesn't join you and the other men. He calls out, "Fire flash," and looks to the sky. As he waits, and the Black Knight gets closer and closer, you can see his pale face, his eyes turn to you, and pleading, he says, "You must run. There is nothing you can do against him. Nothing. You can only die."
And keep my promise. And he pulls the sword up.
Die with honor, then. The rest of you, please, run. And as he says that, from the clouds, there's a spark and a swooping of a copper flash as a dragon, not as large as the others, flies down, coming towards you, moving faster than the Black Knight. Straight towards the barricade, straight towards Tanis.
Riordan spares him no concern. He has no honor.
Many of the Knights of the Crown heed his words. Many of the knights break away, running in all directions, some being chased down by flying banshees, some escaping into alleyways and other streets, maybe to fight another day. The golden dragon swoops down low to the street. Tanis gives you a sad look, a confused look, then jumps, wrapping his arm around the neck of the dragon, pulling up over top of it, and the dragon pulls up into the sky, Tanis on his back, and they begin to fly towards the center of the city together. Even as the Knight of the Black Rose approaches.
The center of the city? The tower?
They're flying towards the center of the city. The tower is one of the things that is in the center of the city.
He thinks about it for a moment.
4 Knights of the Crown. Oh. He thinks about it for a moment, and does he stay or does he run?
He stays.
4 Knights of the Crown stay too. One of them is shaking so hard that his armor is rattling. And they step before the barricade, raising their weapons, preparing their blades. Soth pauses but for a moment, his fiery eyes burning, and then he slowly unsheathes his blade. It's a great sword like yours, but blackened, carved with intricate runes. And then his foul voice echoes from within his helm, cutting across the screams of the dying, rising above the sounds of fires taking the nearby homes and streets. You hear his voice for the first time. And now you see the truth of your measure. You fools worship but a phantom honor. Surrender to me now, throw down your arms, and your life will be spared. Unlike the half-breed, I am a knight of my word.
If you are a knight, then let us finish this as knights. You and I, here. I still have my honor. He starts to walk towards him.
Three of the other knights step forward too. Soth says nothing else. He has given you your offering. You have rejected it. Quietly, he raises the blade above him, looking to join the fight. Go ahead and roll me initiative.
It's a strong 7.
All right. So 3 of the knights step forward. One of the knights, his armor rattling, his eyes wide, probably has wet himself. He's not able to step forward. He looks terrified, and you are an equal plane with him by the time that Soth first raises his weapon. And when he cuts through the air with his sword, it's like cutting through wheat. It's easy for him to lift it despite its weight. It moves with a speed and a grace that belies his size and his slow approach. And he's going to multi-attack. And since the 3 knights are ahead of you, he will reach them first. The first 2 knights fall to his blade, and they cut through plate like it cuts through butter. Their bodies tumble into pieces. One of them manages only to take an inhalation before he is gone. The 3rd knight somehow brings up his sword to block Soth's attack. And as the greatsword comes overhead at that 3rd knight, his blade deflects it. He steps aside, but his sword shatters at the touch of Soth's. Despite that, he pulls a long dagger, maybe a short sword, from his belt, and he goes next. He attacks the Knight of the Black Rose, and his blade breaks against his armor. It's at this point that you find yourself shoulder to shoulder with the quivering knight, the youngest. 2 of them already dead before you. One of them in very, very dangerous straits. What will you do?
I will do what any knight would do. I salute and attack. Does a 23 hit?
A 23 does hit.
Excellent. Then I would like to use my inspiration to inflict maximum damage upon him. Also, in doing so, I would like to spend a superiority die to goad him into an attack. I want him only to face me. And so, my maximum damage for all of that would be 26.
You bring your great sword across your body, and it cuts into his black armor. It doesn't break like the other weapon does. You can feel it cut something. Is it bone or flesh? At this distance, this close, his cold breath on your face, you can see that beneath his helm there is what looks to be rotted remains. It's not skeletal, it's not living, but there is something under that armor. He does not react other than to shrug his shoulder off, and then he turns to you. And since you...
One moment. I too have a multi-attack. I would like to attack again. How's a 12?
No. This time, your blade comes across and bounces off of his armor. It does not break, but it bounces off of his armor and gains no purchase, even as he's bringing up his blade. And with 3, he attempts to cut once through you, then through the other, then through the quivering boy. And it's at this point that I'll mention that from last week, Lord Soth also has inspiration, and he's going to use it on his first attack against you. Didn't need it. So, as his blade comes down, even after you found purchase, maybe wounding him, it didn't seem to slow him down. Even after making your stand, his first attack crashes through you, and immediately there's darkness. Critical is going to be 26 slashing damage and 18 necrotic damage. You do have 10 temporary hit points. Are you still standing?
Yes.
You feel the force of his blade, and you feel like you are about to have your head taken clean off your body. And it's that quivering boy who pushes his way forward, who a moment ago couldn't move, raises his blade up, ready to strike. He never gets there. His body is cleaved in two, and the back swing of that blow that cleaved the boy, still cuts through you. Still does all of that damage to you. How many hit points does that leave you with?
I have 11. I would like to use my reaction to attack back with a superiority die. As he hit me, I'm going to throw another strike. Jesus. It's a natural 1.
Lord Soth uses his reaction as your blow comes in weakly. A deadly riposte, a swordsman of centuries, legendary warrior. He easily deflects your blow and then reverses, pronates his grip, and thrusts towards you, counterattacking. 15.
He deflects. Cling.
You just managed to bat the blow away. Soth still has 2 attacks. His next one is going to be at the disarmed man next to you. Swinging on his backswing, that guy is a little bit closer to him. And just like before, he cuts through his armor and his body. You can see the man's eyes wide with fear as he reaches for another short sword, unable to get it unsheathed. And then Soth takes his final swing across the body and low, right at your legs. 20.
Still a 20? With a 9?
Still a 20.
Yeah, he hits me.
Crashes into your legs for 13 slashing damage and 18 necrotic damage.
Sir Reardon is down.
Is he still alive?
Sir Reardon is in negative hit points.
Okay. You feel the darkness eat away the light. You see the heavy plated foot of the Knight of the Black Rose step over your head, and then another step, and another step, slowly moving towards a long shadow, and then a moment later, that shadow swallows him, and he is gone. Then all light fades, and you see nothing. And it's at that point that we move scenes, and we return to Rookone. Rookone, you've been a part of this battle, and you've moved through this battle. So far, you've kept most of the innocent blood off your hands. What do you do once you get inside the city walls? What sort of goals do you set forth? How do you interact with the people, your fellow men, your fellow slaves?
He doesn't engage. For every warrior he fells as he crashes through the city, he slowly morphs and changes as blood from various comrades and enemies splatters all over him. Some gets into his mouth, and he tastes that coppery tone, and it drives him even more towards this insane bloodlust. His muscles tense, and he's marching through the city, confident, headlong, leaping into the void.
As you march, most of those that stand in your way are fleeing men, women, children, just trying to get out of the way of this incredible violent force, this force crashing its way through their city. And many of the slaves, as soon as they are in, they break off in all directions. You see Minotaurs enter homes. You hear screams of people inside those homes. What is your approach when you come across civilians?
If the civilians are unarmed, they won't give me what I seek. What I'm longing for is an escape. So I scan the grounds looking for threats, throwing myself eagerly at them.
You fight the way through the night, and roll me a charisma saving throw. It's something about the air, it's something about the cold, it's something about that black flying castle, that night, and the banshees and the warriors. But you give into a bloodlust that you haven't felt in a long time. And even though you turn your eye away from innocence as much as possible, you kill many men tonight. You seem unstoppable. Any warrior that stands in your way is either cut down by an ally or cut down by you. And it comes to a point where your red rage is so great that you lose your sense of where you are. You feel as though you're coming closer, ever closer and closer and closer to the center of the city. And then you find yourself just outside of a strange alleyway. And in that alleyway, you see a couple of familiar figures. You see Vlog. You see two Minotaurs, and though you only know them slightly, they are slaves that you've served with. You see beyond them the statue of something which is strange, the statue in this alleyway. And then you see at the end of a trail of blood, resting at the feet of the statue, a knight, armor chipped, face bloodied, and the knight's armor seems to bear the symbol of a sunburst and a kingfisher. The knight's dazed, stirring, alive, but Vlog and the two Minotaurs are slowly creeping through the alleyway towards the figure.
And the Minotaurs are following their Vlog's orders.
Yeah, you can hear him hiss out at one point, "Don't kill the knight, save the knight. When this is all over, my larder needs to be refilled, and a broken knight makes a great slave." Roll me a perception check, too, while you're at it. There's something familiar about one of the Minotaurs. You can't quite place it. You're not sure what it is, but there's a sense of deja vu. And so at this point, that Reardon, you stir. You're in this alleyway. You're the knight that they're approaching. You have 1 hit point and 10 temporary hit points thanks to a great time donation. And you see before you, first, this statue. It's an ivory figure, a draconian. It's maw, lizard, and snarling. Its claw reaching for you, but it's frozen. It's a statue. At the statue's feet, 2 blades, one your own, and one a long dagger with elven design, intricate carvings on the hilt. Dagger that you recognize, you've seen in battle once before. Your eyes are hazy, but you would know it anywhere. It belongs to the Golden General. It belongs to Lorana.
He would fumble for a moment, pick up Absolution, and pick up the dagger, and pull himself to his feet. Come on!
Rokon, you see this. You see him stand, barely able to be on his feet. And you see Vlog and the 2 Minotaurs getting closer. Still not quite sure what's familiar about one of them. You're standing on the outside of the alleyway, and Sir Reardon, you would see a 3rd Minotaur. You would see a Draconian and 3 Minotaurs there. One of them a little further back. Rokon, what do you do?
His bloodlust still seething. Now his eyes roll into the back of his head, and he recalls so many of these memories of him with Vlog. His fingers run across his chest and find scars that Vlog had put there, or had ordered others to put there. He touches his disfigured face, and he starts breathing heavily. And he sprints headlong, and Goring rushes Vlog in the back.
As you charge, starting to move into the alleyway, you didn't see it at first because of your rage, but flowing down the street like molten shadow is a river of blackness. It's spilling from the center of the city, and it's not washing over everything. It's almost as though it spills and swerves and avoids. You see it avoid a young boy moving further and further down the street. And as you reach that edge of the alleyway, it turns and it crashes over you like a wave. It spills into the alleyway. Vlog turns and he sees you. The other Minotaurs turn, and it's that point, in that moment, in that strange, surreal moment, that you see what looked familiar about one of the Minotaurs. It's not him. It's the weapon he's holding. It's Hezgronus, and it's bloody.
He tries to free himself from the shadows.
Roll me a strength saving throw. And Greg, what's Reardon doing? This shadow is washing over you too.
Would Reardon have been able to recognize by the angle of attack of this other Minotaur that he was charging the back of the Draconian?
I'm not even going to make you roll that, because as a strategic military man, a trained man, there's no way that a Minotaur would lower his head and use his horns in such a way that he would be trying to get at you. So yes, I would say you would guess that he was charging at your enemies, not with your enemies.
Okay, he is going to charge then in the same direction as they are, as they turn to look at the charging Minotaur and the darkness coming. He's going to run towards them with everything he has left. If you allow it, he's going to use second wind upon his approach, and he is going to tear into these people with everything he's got.
So second wind's an action, right?
Bonus.
Yeah. So you can definitely do that and attack on the same turn. Which one are you rushing towards?
That's 8 hit points back for me. He will rush towards whichever one is closer. He's not going to be... Whichever one the Minotaur charging from the rear was not rushing at. So if the Minotaur was taking the Draconian, he'll take the other.
You take one of the two Minotaurs. All right. They're caught between you, and in this moment, this strange moment, they have given up their attack for a heartbeat, leaving an opening for both of you. So both of you go ahead and make me your attack rolls. And Rukon, you're able to continue to barrel forward through this shadow.
That's a natural 20.
And that's a 10 from Rukon.
Correct.
Vlog turns just at 21.
Yeah.
Vlog turns just in time to deflect your blade with a wave of his hand, and there's a flash of magical light, your horns, and you find yourself falling forward. Some of that shadow gets up into your mouth. Even as Sir Reardon, you slice your way through this Minotaur. He's drawing up his scimitar. He's got his shield in hand. It's a wooden shield, and you cut through it. You feel your blade find purchase in his chest where his heart lay, and his body go limp against your sword.
Can I take my second attack?
Absolutely.
He would turn it on the Draconian. 23.
That's a hit.
That would be 11, and I'm going to spend a superiority die to, let me see, what am I going to do? I'm so scared. I can't stop crying. Let's see, I think he's just going for blunt force trauma here. He's going to try to trip him and drop him to the ground.
Okay.
So that's a DC 15 strength, and it's an additional, it's an additional D8.
Let's see.
Which would be 5. 16 total, DC 15 strength.
All right, so yeah, he rolls a 17. So he manages, even with the shadow, to kind of, he falls, and like Rukon, some of the shadow splashes up into the Draconian's maw. He manages to stand back up to his feet. And your blade seems to have slowed him down and hurt him, but not stopped him. And that shadow continues to rise now, just as it did before. Both of you roll me perception checks.
Natural 20. Where were you during the Soth battle?
You'll both see this, but Reardon will get a much clearer picture through the darkness as it rises. And I mean, it rises fast to your shoulders, over your head, into your mouth, into your nose. You see a figure coming somehow from below you, flying through the shadow. Reardon, you can see somehow this figure's face. It's a woman with black hair and golden eyes, flying upward through the shadow towards you. And Honoria, for a moment, you see them too, and the Draconian, and the other Minotaur that's still alive.
Mayat Kandala. I cast mage armor on myself while I'm flying. I'll hover, watch the river. Do I notice anything about the river's movements? I don't want to metagame or anything, but you had said earlier that it was purposely avoiding such things. I feel it would be safe to say that my attention would still be intent on the river at this point.
Roll me an Arcana check.
It's an 11.
You feel certain that this river of shadow is sentient, that it has a purpose and intention of some sort. You're not sure what that intention is. And as you hover there, you see this battle, these floating fighters, Rookon, Reardon, the Draconian, Vlog, another Minotaur, wielding a weapon familiar to Rookon. And that is where we're going to end this episode, our first episode of May Black Roses Bloom.
I'm right there, guys. So close.
Yeah.
You hit Soth.
You
hit Soth! What the fuck, man?
Oh, he hit me too.
Yeah, we noticed.
Boy, did he.
Oh, man.
All right. I'm going to go check out these polls real quick. In the meantime, I'm going to hand things over to Greg. Hey, Greg. How are you doing, buddy?
Hey, man. I feel good. I'm going to have to, probably squeegee out my armor because I was sweating buckets. I thought I'd just drop some Major League coin on some cool-ass chainmail that was going on the shelf after episode 1. I had a fantastic time. This is unbelievable. Everybody in chat was so incredibly engrossed in your storytelling, Don. Everybody with Rookon, with Honoria, I was enraptured with their stories. I mean, you sent me a couple song cues. I was like, oh shit. I was completely not thinking about tech stuff for, I mean, it was great. Chat, you were fantastic. Thank you so, so much. Please throw us a follow if you enjoyed what you saw here. Don is telling a tale and a half, everybody. This is going to be fun. If my guy lives through another episode, it's going to be a humdinger. I'm Grimjack21502. Twitch is Twitter. You're already on the channel. Follow it. YouTube, subscribe. Everybody else, follow them. I'm going to be shooting the links in chat. I'm going to hand this one off to my man Billy down below. Billy, how are you doing, brother?
I'm doing this shit's tense. Oh man, we've been thinking about this for months, and to finally see it come to fruition, and to be in this world and live in this world and walk Rookon's path and share it with people is so awesome. I'm having a friggin' blast. Thank you, everybody. If you guys want to follow me on Twitter, Bill of the Forest is where it's at. Yeah, man, I'm so excited. I can't wait. Thank you guys so much.
Everybody, links in chat. Follow Bill. And you know what? If you weren't around or you don't follow Bill because of the snort at the beginning, then you know what? I, you know what? You gotta have love for that. That was amazing. Chill up my spine. I just said it again. I got chill up my spine. Let's go over to Tia. Tia, what did we just do? It's amazing. Tia, how did you do?
There was a really huge part of me that wanted to attempt to walk through the stairs to see what would happen, but when I took the pebble and threw it through, and he went immediately, and I was like, yeah, I'm not going through there. Fuck that. Raceland's voice was haunting. It was exactly the way I read it in my own voice when I read the books. So that's something that I'm probably gonna have dreams about. Watching you guys in your individual battles, I can picture the Minotaur with his shield and his sword just ducking and weaving. It was brilliant. It made me scared because anything could have happened, but fast-moving targets are harder to hit, so it felt right for the moment. Greg, that fucking crit on Soth, you dumbass. But another part of me was like, well, that's one less thing I gotta worry about later on, so... But Raceland, where did he go? I can't. There's so many things I'm going to watch and look over to see if I missed any cues anywhere. But yeah. And I can't wait for next week to see the other half of the crew. Don,
No.
Bravo, man. Thank you for inviting me to be a part of this.
Oh no, thank you for being here. I loved everything tonight. I loved it all.
Yeah, this is my drug now. Thanks.
Oh my god, I know. Unreal. Everybody, Tia's links in chat. We're going to swing this one right back around to the man that tingled all the spines tonight. Don, what's up, man?
Dude.
Yeah, I had such a great first episode. There's a lot I wanted to cover, and I got through like 85% of it. I call that a win. For me, that's definitely a win. I knew trying to bring the three of you together, that's a lot to do in one episode, but I just felt so compelled by all of your individual moments. I thought it was going to be such a throwaway scene, but I ended up loving that pre-wedding party with Sir Reardon so much, even though it was the calmest, most normal of everything. There was I love your characters. I'm such huge fans. Please forgive me. Now it's time for the bad news. I need all of you to make me a corruption saving throw. That is a charisma saving throw. And Greg, Reardon has advantage on this.
16.
Orokon, you will never quite recover, never quite be the same after this battle, after what you've seen and what you've done. This isn't like your raids. This was a slaughter, and you were the hammer. You were the axe. You will gain 1d8 corruption. Roll that corruption for me, buddy.
Oh, lost in the character sheet.
There you go.
We got to stop letting him do this stuff, everybody.
Join me with the D8 of corruption I got earlier, buddy.
So you will gain 8 corruption, and that brings you close to a major shift in who you are and what you stand for. Meanwhile, we have the polls in from today, and they mirror last week. So, Sir Reardon, the light still shines. Now, the next 2 corruption saving throws Reardon fails, he will ignore the results of. So he's holding on to who he is for at least a little while. Meanwhile, I need for Honoria another 1d8 rolled for swimming and flying through the shadow, drinking the shadow. Honoria, you gain a level. And your alignment shifts. Would you like to share with everyone what your alignment shifts to?
I believe I go straight to chaotic evil from here.
You do. You shift straight to chaotic evil. That will come into effect in episode 3 when we return to this particular story. Next week, we are going to go to the Age of Might. This is 357 years in the past, at the height of civilization, right before the fall of civilization. And we are going to meet 2 more fantastic characters. Allison playing Sabrina Sunishal, Kiana playing Averin, and we'll have a few surprises next week too. But for tonight, that's all I have. Thank you so much for sharing this story with me. I love your characters, chat. I only caught 1/1000th of the support and the things that you guys were saying tonight, but thank you for being here, for being so cool. Please come back next week, next Wednesday at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time for the next episode. You can follow me at Donathan Fry on Twitter. That's where I will post about the other stuff that I'm up to.
Oh, yes! That's my hit point, sorry.
Man, oh, this was utterly fantastic. Chat, thank you so much for being with us. Next week, a whole new story in Dragonlance. I mean, Lorana, Raceland, I mean, Tannis? Tannis? Yeah, I am so stoked. I am so happy. Thank you all for being here. The 7, 8, 9, and 10-year-old boy in me is overjoyed that he got to fight Lord Soth. I'm super selfish about this.
It was the
You got to talk to Raceland. It was just the best. Dawn, thank you so much. Everybody, thank you so much. Hit that follow. Follow everybody on Twitter. We're going to be talking about this, but please be here next week. You've got to see where this story... I've got to see where this story goes. Everyone, we'll be sending out a raid here in a second, but I'm shaking so bad, I need to go get a drink. I love you all. Take it easy. 2018 stinks, but by God, come back to the Age of Might next week. I guarantee you, it's going to be something.